So I didn't plan on doing a video today because I had some stuff going on, but I check the news and I see that Jeffrey Epstein supposedly committed suicide. And this story infuriates me to no end because to me it is yet another example of our two-tiered justice system. And I'm not talking about, we all know that there's problems if you just have general wealth and you're able to get away with crimes that other people don't. So if you're a millionaire, you can afford a better lawyer. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a tier of people that actually run this country, of the corrupt people in this world that have unbelievable power, that are never held to justice anywhere. The Jimmy Saviles of the world. The people that are the biggest monsters, that attack children, that everybody knows, but they're allowed to get away with it over and over and over again. And if you bring it up, you're a crazy conspiracy theory person, and we just have to ignore it, and it exists below the surface, and we all know it's true, but none of us could do anything about it. That's what happened with Epstein in the first place, where everybody knew that he committed these crimes. Everybody knew that he had all these wealthy people connected to him. But what happened? He got a slap on the wrist. So then when he's finally held to account because he has to, and his usefulness is borne its course, he gets put in jail. He tries to kill himself once, supposedly, or someone attacked him, or whatever happened. He's put on suicide watch, and they still can't protect him. One of the victim's lawyers said that they would be surprised if this ever made it to trial because so many powerful people wanted him out of the picture because he could connect them to these heinous crimes. And predictably, people like me and average Joe Schmoes, we all knew, you knew deep down, that no one would be held accountable. Once in a blue moon, they have to burn one person. But that's it. This should infuriate every single person. I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. He was connected to people of all political parties, people in different countries, people that aren't even involved in politics but were involved in royalty, or massively wealthy people that were involved in the entertainment industry and things like that. And now none of them will be held accountable. Just like when the DC madam committed suicide. This is what happens every single time. It's why I'm so pessimistic that anything will be done about the Russia hoax and the investigation that happened there. Now, I'm not going to talk about that a lot because I'm not here to... I don't want people to think that this is just me being upset that maybe he could connect people on the left. That's not what I'm saying. I don't care about the politics of it. I care that, again, we see that justice won't be served. So let's talk about specifically what happened. He tries to hang himself and has marks on his neck, what happened a month ago, a couple weeks ago, and so he's put on suicide watch. So when I've read that basically suicide watch entailed that he wasn't monitored, there was cameras on him, I think the whole time, but there wasn't like a guard permanently sitting there watching. They just had certain times to check on him. So the time they checked on him, I believe, was 7:30 this morning, and that's when the first watch was, which seems irregular that you would wait that long to check on someone, but they found him, reports I'm showing saying that maybe he had 3-4 minutes to accomplish this. It seems very unlikely. So what are the possibilities? What could theoretically happen? So let's start in the least conspiratorial sense. It's very possible that he could have killed himself, and maybe he killed himself because he knew that his fate was going to be worse, and he didn't want to give up his friends or something like that. Doesn't matter, it's still heinous. There is no reason in such a high-profile case of this, where the stakes were so high, that they couldn't have made sure that he was unable to harm himself, particularly after it happened once. Period. No, there's no excuse whatsoever. None. Every single person in authority ought to be investigated in that police station or in that prison. Every single one. Because once more, this will be used as an excuse to not go after the people that were connected to him. So that high-profile, highly powerful people could get away with some of the most heinous crimes. That's just on that level. Now the second level, possibly he was murdered, which seems very likely. Because there were so many high-profile... we had a prince that was connected to it. We had a former president that was connected to it. We had all sorts of celebrities, all sorts of people in politics. How ironic that the notices just came out from his first trial, naming all of these people. Just came out. On the week it comes out, then he kills himself. How convenient for those people that were named. And people will say, oh yeah, but they already have the evidence, so maybe they'll get these people. Yeah, right. You keep wishing. Just like maybe Epstein would have faced justice. And by the way, this isn't justice. This isn't just, I'm not sad that he's dead. He was a monster. But for his victims, this isn't justice. They should have had their day in court to point the finger at him and let the world know exactly what this monster did and made him sit there and answer for it. He should have spent the rest of his life in prison thinking of his crimes every single day, not this easy way out. But if he was murdered, again, the police knew that was, or the law enforcement people in this prison knew that was a significant possibility. And they couldn't manage. How hard is it to put someone in a 10 by 10 cell and make sure they don't kill themselves? You have monitors, you have staff. You can't sit there and make sure this doesn't happen. And this isn't just some low-level punk drug dealer that you're hoping will flip on some higher-level drug dealers. We're talking about quite possibly the biggest political takedown of people on all sides of the takedown of powerful for the most heinous of crimes. And this is the guy, this is the linchpin to all of that. And you couldn't manage to make sure that he wasn't murdered or he didn't kill himself. And now that, I see plenty of people talking about exactly what I thought about. Are we even sure that Epstein's dead? How do we know that they didn't switch him out and get a body that kind of looked like him and say, oh, that's it, don't worry about it. Don't ask any questions. But don't worry, because that makes me a crazy lunatic for thinking something like that. Coincidentally, the FBI just came out and said, oh, you know who's a big danger to this country? Crazy conspiracy theorist. Yeah, isn't that convenient? In the same week that this happens. If you got problems, if you think this seems shady, don't worry. You'll just get the Alex Jones treatment. You'll be banished and shunned and told that you're a monster. It'll be brushed under the rug. Sure, there'll be lip service paid for the next couple days. Oh, yeah, this looks really bad. Yeah, you'll see it in the media. Boy, that's a real chin scratcher. Too bad. And then the story will be gone. This always happens with the top tier of law enforcement. Again, look at Jimmy Savile. You had people like Johnny Rotten, who's on the radio in the 70s, formerly of the Sex Pistols, saying, yeah, Jimmy Savile and the stuff he gets up to with kids. We all know it. Everybody knows it. Everyone in the entertainment industry knew it. But nothing got done. Then as soon as he dies, they're like, oh, yeah, that guy's a pedophile. But yeah, no one else. Don't worry. These cases are always swept under the rug. And then you wonder how something like Pizzagate came to be. Now look, when it came to Pizzagate, I didn't look at the specifics. I know that there were powerful people involved in sex trafficking and child sex trafficking. But I also think that you shouldn't accuse a specific individual unless you have proof, particularly if they're not exactly a high-profile figure. And I get that some people, when you have a conspiracy like this, people are going to take it in directions that might not always be true. But the overarching theme of it, that these child sex predators in high-profile places, highly powerful people, that's true. We know it's true. And so they lump you with the craziest people and say, see, you're all just crazy conspiracy theorists. You can't talk about it. That's exactly the direction this will go. All those people that were named, nothing will happen. And you know how I know that? Because Epstein pled guilty in 2009 to hiring underage prostitutes. And look at all the celebrities. Prince Andrew showed up to a party of his 2 weeks later. Katie Couric showed up to a party. Woody Allen showed up to the party. Any of their careers suffered as a result? No, they're busy telling you, Me Too movement. We got to protect women while they're hanging out with a known pedophile. So do you think that things will change this time? Oh, now that he's dead, don't worry. They'll really go after the people that were connected to him. No, they won't. They'll get away with it like they always do. And we're suckers and we're rubes. We'll just move on to the next story, and it won't matter. 3 weeks from now, no one will remember, and the few people that are talking about it will be written off. And these groups they'll point to the most insane person that says it was holograms or something, or, some ridiculous, whatever the most ridiculous version of the conspiracy will be, and say, see, everyone who has a problem with Epstein's suicide, they're lumped in with these people. It's dangerous. The FBI says those conspiracy theorists are dangerous. This should outrage. Can you imagine if you were the victim of Epstein and his powerful friends, one of these underage girls, and you're reading this story today? You had to go for years with this guy and all of his cohorts never answering for justice. Then finally, maybe you get a little optimism finally after you've suffered for over a decade. And this happens? I mean, it's... Oh, my God. And I've been saying for a while, the Epstein... For me, one of the big things I focus on in this channel is the Russia hoax, right? And the reason is because it's not just a Democrat thing or a left-wing thing, just like this Epstein thing. It's people on both sides, that there is kind of an establishment. They agree at the highest levels. They agree on things like foreign wars. They agree on bailing out the bankers. And they screwed up. They didn't expect someone like Trump to win or Bernie to be as successful as he was. And so they did everything they could to keep him out. And I said, see, the Russia investigation, it shows if we get to the bottom of it. And I'm pessimistic that anyone will be held to account. But it's one of the chances, the few chances we've had in my lifetime to actually out these behind-the-scenes elite people for just how terrible they are. And how they don't care about our voice and they run the show. And they'll screw anyone over that has any chance whatsoever of you taking away their hegemony on this power. But I said, it's difficult for people to wrap their heads around that. They don't get it. It's hard to explain to your neighbor that's working 9 to 5 exactly all the ins and outs of this Russia situation. But the Epstein case, that was the case. People understand how heinous pedophilia is. People understand that Epstein was connected to people in both parties. Powerful people, not just in the United States, not just Republicans and Democrats, but people overseas as well. And not just politically connected people, powerful people of all sorts. And so this was a significant chance to finally, in our lifetime, be able to say we could finally see some little justice for these people that are the super powerful, that have a justice system rigged so that they're never held to account. Maybe Epstein, who's one of those people, he's just on the periphery of it. Maybe we could actually use him to be able to get bigger fish. And for once, we could actually bring these monsters to justice. And who knows, maybe it'll start a snowball effect. But we all knew deep down it wouldn't happen. This was the one significant chance that we had, and gone. Just like that. This always happens. And yeah, like Tyler said, all the people connected to Clinton. Sure, it's people connected to Clintons. It's, you could say, someone dared to go against the royal family in Britain, and they end up dead. Who knows? But isn't it convenient that every time we have someone that's going to out some of these big, powerful people like the Clintons, like the elite people, I mean, if you look into the stories in the UK, it's disgusting. We know that there's story after story of there's supposedly high-profile people involved in politics in the UK, that the media is sitting on stories that they know have been credibly accused of all sorts of heinous crimes involving children. But it's never reported. They'll just wait until they die and then report it, like they did with Jimmy Savile. And anytime anyone wants to blow the whistle on these people, they end up dead. Now, Epstein wasn't going to voluntarily blow the whistle, but that's what made him even more dangerous. I'm guessing Epstein was a cowardly worm that would have done whatever he could to lessen his punishment. And if that meant selling out his quote-unquote friends, so be it. That's probably why he was recording them in the first place, because he just wanted leverage. Leverage so when he was out of jail, they would do what he wants, and leverage if he ever gets charged to say, hey, you're going to go easy on me because I could give you all these high-profile people. Yeah, I saw that on Above Top Secret where I was. I saw that poster, Echoes in Time, posted someone who's claiming to be a guard that said basically that a van came with like a militaristic looking van came and put Epstein in it before this occurred. And so they're legitimately worried that he was switched out for some sort of body double. I don't know if that's true or not. And it's worth talking about, and I don't mind discussing these conspiracy theories. Who could blame us for thinking of things like this? Were we all crazy conspiracy theories when we said, he'll never make it to trial, he'll get Arkansaded, right? Or he'll be killed. Anyone who has the potential to throw a Clinton under the bus, or all these high powerful people under the bus, they won't make it to trial. And again, we were right. Just another coincidence, though, I'm assuming, right? When you talk to all the people that want to defend this, just a coincidence. We're the crazy people. It's not a coincidence. It's the same way I knew that Mueller wasn't going to charge anyone connected to the Hillary family or to the DNC or to the establishment. Nope. Only crimes connected to people to Trump will be charged. Flynn lies to the FBI, charged. Mills and Aberdeen lied to the FBI, and Hillary herself, not charged. Manafort fails to register as a foreign lobbyist, charged. Podesta fails to register as a foreign lobbyist while working with Manafort, not charged. These people are never held accountable, period, regardless of what the crime is. Trump's seen as a potential outsider. You could bet if Epstein was only connected to Trump, he would have been kept nice and safe. All the people in the establishment, the Chuck Schumers and the Pelosi's and all of them in the world would be saying, we're worried Trump will do something to this guy. You keep an eye on him 24/7. But he wasn't just connected to Trump. And more than they hate Trump, yes, there were some periphery connections, but the article that just came out, the stuff that came out from Epstein's trial said the victims were saying Trump was seen around Epstein from time to time, but he never flirted or sexually assaulted anyone. And they named tons of names. It specifically said these victims, at least this one victim said Trump never did anything. She never saw him do anything with anyone. But trust me, that'll be the next. You'll see tons of people saying, Trump's probably connected to Epstein dying. Because everything has to be used to smear him. Because even if you don't think he's an outsider, he's a potential outsider. These people, this cabal at the top, they're not going to risk losing any sort of power. Do you really think it's beyond them? If you're the type of person that's using child sex trafficking, do you think it's beyond, and you have that much power, do you think it's beyond them to add a little murder to it? Of course not. But it's just a coincidence. And like the FBI said, if you have a problem with that, if you think this is some sort of conspiracy, well, then you're a danger to this country. You're just one of those crazy Pizzagate. You're Alex Jones. You're responsible for people showing up to pizza parlors with guns. You're a terrible person. Never mind that the victims won't get justice. Never mind that this happens over and over again. Why do we trust law enforcement at this point? At the highest levels. I'm not talking about the cop down the street. I'm not even talking about the average FBI member. This is the same organization, by the way, right? That they could tell you everything about the El Paso shooter within 3 days, but they're still clueless. They don't have anything on the Las Vegas shooter. Nothing. It's the same group that tells us, the same intel agency that's like, yeah, trust us, we got bin Laden, we just buried him at sea. No one can see, but just trust us, believe us. How many times are we going to buy this crap? We know they lie to us over and over when it comes to the big issues, but we just have to believe them. Shoot, slipped through our fingers. We thought we had him. We put him in jail, we had him on suicide watch, and he was just too good for us. I mean, the guy was better than all of the power of our law, the FBI, and the power of all the people that are running the prison. He was just better than all that. I'll bet you Paul Manafort, when they thought he was going to flip and they put him in solitary confinement, I bet they were monitoring him very closely, don't you think? Because they thought they had a chance to finally take down Trump with him. But this monster, we're just talking about the most heinous crime imaginable. Child sex trafficking of underagers. Of the most powerful people in the world. No big deal. Let's just put him in a room. Oh, he tried to kill himself once. Oh, well, we'll put him in a room. We'll check in periodically. We all know what this was. Every one of us know. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you're from this country or you're not. You know. But that same organization, those same organizations, we have to trust them when they say, and by the way, we need to go to war in Syria. And these Russian trolls were really bad. And by the way, we have to crack down on your rights online because of this or that. Can you blame the average person for having no faith in these people when crap like this happens? I mean, it's bad enough Epstein was allowed to basically walk with a slap on the wrist the first time. But now when their hand is forced, because, God forbid, we actually had, the first video I did on Epstein, I talked about this. The FBI specifically said, why did you bring the case out? Well, we had help from some investigative journalists. Geez, wouldn't that have been nice? How many girls could have been saved if we actually had journalists doing their job and holding the powerful to account? But instead we have the Katie Courics of the world palling around with Epstein. They don't care to actually serve justice and stick up for people that are disenfranchised or abused. They are part of the mainstream media, is part of the establishment. They spent the past 3 years telling you, if you criticize these intel agencies, then you're part of the problem. You're hurting the country. But we have to trust them. So they didn't cover Epstein, and then all these more abuses happen. And then when one finally does, Mike Cernovich, think what you will of him, but when he actually starts to file a lawsuit to get access to the sealed documents, which, by the way, documents like that are never sealed when someone has a plea deal. When we finally get the ball rolling on that, and then the Miami Herald, I think, which also did excellent work, started reporting, all of a sudden, the lawsuit was won, And so the FBI had to go, crap, what did I say? And not just me, it's not that I'm some genius. I'm sure probably almost everyone here thought the same things as I did. I said, it's not that the FBI had a change of heart and it's like, now we'll start to hold the powerful to account. It's just they knew that the story was going to be made public of all the heinous crap that Epstein did and he got a slap on the wrist. So they had to cover themselves and hurry up and arrest him. And then it just so happens, whoops, we dropped the ball and we put him somewhere where he was able to kill himself. Oh well, we tried our best. I said, it wasn't altruistic. The FBI did this because their hand was forced. And it just so either the FBI is incredibly incompetent, and the people that are running these prisons, some of the most incompetent people in the world, you try to kill yourself, you know that it's a case of the most important, of as important as could be to the world, not just to the United States. And you can't manage to make sure the guy's kept safe. You just can't manage it. But we're supposed to believe that. That's what we're supposed to believe. They tried their best. They did, oh, well, that's the legal system. Oh, shoot. These powerful people are never held to account. Sorry, I had to check my phone there. I'm just unbelievably furious right now. I ran for Congress. I try to do these videos. I try to talk to people. I try to talk, and I mean, there are people I come from the right. I'm biased, I admit it. I'm Republican. I talk to people. I just spent 5 hours doing a live stream with someone who's more on the left last night. I disagree with them a lot, but we're having a civil conversation. I'm trying in my life to do what I can because I see that there's a problem with the politics in this country. And not just this country, in the world. So I'm trying. I tried to run. I lost. Oh, well. I try to talk to people. I try to do videos. Of course, I'm biased, but I'm trying to do what I can. Why should we try anything when it's so obvious that there will never be any justice? None. They laugh at you. They're slapping you in the face. It's so public, it's ridiculous. They don't even try to hide it anymore. Just look at other things. Hillary Clinton's team deleted subpoenaed evidence. No charge. Don't get confused. We're talking about the private server and stuff like that. That's all more complicated. All you need to know is if you have someone, I don't care who you are, if the FBI comes to you or Congress comes to you or your local police comes to you and says, hey, we would like your computer or your emails within a week because it's evidence in a serious crime, and you say, oh, okay, you're subpoenaing it, thanks, and then you go home and you delete it, you go to jail. That's what happens. Now, I'm not saying Hillary personally did it, but someone in her team did it. We know Paul Combetta did it. We know that James Comey said he basically assumed it was Cheryl Mills that told him to do it. That's their own words. Yet no one was held accountable. Not only was no one held accountable, the media totally ignored the story. You don't even hear right-wing people talking about it that much. And the same people that allowed this to go are now furious about Trump supposedly obstructing justice. Now again, I'm not just saying it's just on the left. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that Hillary Clinton, who is an establishment deep state type person, never is going to be held accountable for any crimes. At all. Of course not. We all knew it. We knew it was a sham investigation. How many investigations do you know that start off giving everyone immunity? I did a video on that. I said, we know the FBI and the way they, and Comey, or I'm sorry, the FBI and Mueller, the way they handled the Trump investigation proves that the Hillary investigation was a sham. Because with the Trump investigation, what did they do? They started going after everyone connected to him that they could, charging them with any crime they could think of, and then trying to get them to flip to go after people. Just like they presumably would do with Epstein. That's how law enforcement works. That's what you do. You get lower level people, you get them to flip, and then you get the big fish. Instead, when it came to a powerful elite people like Hillary Clinton, what did they do? Well, we'll give everyone immunity and then see if they want to out themselves for crimes that they may be committed. The fact that she's a Democrat, not important. It's the fact that she's an elite, powerful person. That's what's important. And they look out for themselves. It's right in your face. They're laughing at you. They put this guy in jail, Epstein. He tried to kill himself, supposedly, or was attacked, whatever you believe. And they couldn't manage to put him in a cell that has 24-hour surveillance with video equipment on it. They couldn't manage to keep him from killing himself or to keep someone from killing him. And that's if you believe their story. Not to mention, I think you're well within your rights to buy the conspiracy that says maybe they snuck him out. Because the powerful people are never held to account. It's right in your face. They know it. They distract you. The story will be, no, I'm sure we'll hear about why Trump's a racist here tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be, wanting border wall or wanting to solve illegal immigration makes you a racist. On to the next thing. Right in your face. They don't even have to hide it. And so now, where are we? Oh, here's my prediction. One, you'll start to see people that will try to connect this to Trump. Second, you'll see people say that they'll be saying, well, it's suspicious, and they'll say it for a couple days, and then it'll be dropped. Third, you'll see people that'll say, oh, don't worry, the investigation will be ongoing. Don't worry, the FBI will come out and tell us that. The FBI's, we're still looking into it. We still got good evidence, and we're still looking into it. So we're going to get to the bottom. We're going to get to the bottom of, what our lapse in judgment. It's always a lapse in judgment with the FBI, right? Always. It's always a lapse in judgment when these high profile, oops, we made a mistake, but don't worry, we'll look into it, we'll figure it out. And don't worry, we'll keep looking into the evidence we collected and see if we can charge anyone else. And they might even just, because I'm sure there'll be enough people upset, they might even throw a bone and get some low-level person. But you think the bigwig's name, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, you think any of those people are going to see justice? Fat chance. And so that'll go on for a while. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, right, here's what will happen. Then the people like me that will still want to talk about this will basically be told to shut our mouths. And I'm responsible for crazy conspiracy theorists. And, if someone does something heinous, like takes a gun to a pizza shop, it's my fault. Or it's your fault for being interested and being outraged about this. Sorry about those girls that were raped. Sorry about those girls that were sex trafficking. But we have better things to do. We need to focus on Trump's mean tweets. How many times are we going to allow this? And we're just told over and over with all these mix-ups at the FBI and at the high levels of the justice system. We're just told over and over again, whoops, just a mistake. Whoops, another mistake. Whoops, another mistake. Do we have the most incompetent people ever running these departments? At what point do you start to say, wow, it seems there's a pattern here? Oops, sorry we sat on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Our mistake. Whoops, sorry that we totally bungled up the investigation into the Las Vegas shooting. Our bad. It won't happen again. Oops, sorry we had all of our top agents saying that they were basically going to have an insurance policy to go after Trump. No big deal. Whoops, sorry we lied about this, used evidence that we knew was never verified to investigate a presidential candidate. Oops, sorry that Chuck Schumer came out on national television and said, don't you dare criticize the intel agencies because they'll find 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you, Mr. President. But we just have to believe it's not that they're corrupt. It's just that they're incredibly incompetent. But don't call them out on it or you're anti-American. Why should we have, if these people can't keep a guy safe in a 24-hour surveyed cell, why should we trust them on anything? These are the people that are going to save us from the terrorists? These are the people that are going to save us from mass shootings? They can't keep one guy safe in a cell that they're monitoring 24 hours a day? Oh, and it just so happens, by the way, he's connected to all these powerful people that would do anything to shut this guy up. But, that's neither here nor there. The D.C. madam, remember that? She was going to out a bunch of people. One sec, let's see what's going on. What happened to her? Oh, suicide. Vince Foster, what happened to him? Suicide, twice in the back of the head. Over and over. Anytime we get someone that's going to out and blow the whistle on these powerful people. Suicide, suicide. Random murder. Now you look at, I would look at the people that like denigrate conspiracy theories. Can you blame people for being a conspiracy theorist? Can you blame them? It just so happens this way. So, like, for example, let me give you a conspiracy theory, the Seth Rich conspiracy theory. I haven't talked much on it. I've read about it, but I haven't talked much of it. I'm highly skeptical that the official story is true, that Russia hacked the DNC server, and the DNC said, yeah, but you're not allowed to see our server. Our private company will copy the server and give it to you. I'm highly skeptical of that official story. Because if this really was an act of war, like the DNC said, and this was such a big deal, then they would have jumped at the chance to leave the FBI see their server. So that story was garbage. But I don't think that's proof that the Seth Rich thing happened. But there's certainly questions with the Seth Rich. That's pretty odd that a robber killed him without taking anything. And he just so happened to seem to be someone who was upset with their treatment of Bernie Sanders. And people like William Binney and other people that used to be in the NSA are saying that it's impossible for its transfer speeds to be that much. Online, it looked like it was probably downloaded onto a USB. I don't know. I don't think that's definitive proof. But can you blame anyone for thinking that? Can you really blame them? After crap like this happens? How many times do we have to be told that, you remember the Iraq War? Remember getting lied into the Iraq War? And then everyone said, after all these journalists said, oh, we're sorry that we were complacent. We should have done our job as journalists and asked more questions. It won't happen again. Now, 10 years later, those same journalists are telling you, not only are they not going to question these intel agencies, but if you want to question them, you're hurting America. That's how far they've gone. The people 10 years ago, they said, we should have done our job and questioned them. Meanwhile, don't worry. We had to believe them about Libya too, right? Had to believe them. Had to go and overthrow Libya because why again? Because Gaddafi said that he was going to be, there were terrorists in his country trying to overthrow him, and he was fighting back. So Obama said, well, that's unacceptable. Gaddafi should just leave these people overthrow him. So we got it back, and it'll be a much better place. How's that looking? How'd that Benghazi situation look? Libya, it's a real nice place now, right? Not to say it was perfect beforehand, but it just so happened we went in there. Oh, and the terrorists, the freedom fighters that we were backing, that was going after Gaddafi. Gaddafi's going on national TV saying, this is ISIS. These aren't even people from the country. These are foreigners, Islamic extremists. Why is the United States backing them? And these extremists, one of the first things they wanted, they were upset that we don't want our own currency. We want to be backed by the Federal Reserve and the United States dollar. Yeah, because if you're a peasant that's upset about a brutal dictator, that's going to be your first demand. But we had to believe him. Same with Syria. We had to launch the bombs. And by the way, Trump's guilty of this too, right? Launch these bombs in Syria. We had to believe the intel agencies that they said that despite Assad basically having won, the only thing he could possibly do to lose would be to use gas on his own people. But that's what he did. Twice, we had to believe them. We had to drop bombs. And now we found out in both situations, it looks like it wasn't as seemed. Oops, our bad again. Just like the Gulf of Tonkin incident, right? Just like overthrowing the Shah in Iran. Just like backing the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in the late 70s and early 80s that then became Al-Qaeda. Just like backing Fidel Castro. Every single time. They're corrupt and they lie to us, but then we have to believe them the next time. The FBI, the CIA, all of these groups. Oh, trust us this time. Every single time, the high-profile person gets away. Oops, he slipped through our fingers again. Up, another suicide that could have provided information to bring down high-profile people. Every single time. Every time. And it's not just this country. Like I said, read some of the stories in the UK. It's bone-chilling. That they know that there are people in the high levels of government that have been credibly accused of assaulting children, sex trafficking of children. All of the people that were connected to Jimmy Savile. Like I said, we had people like Johnny Rotten who doesn't care, who just comes out and says what he thinks. God bless people like him, Hussein in the 70s. We know what Jimmy Savile's up to, but that didn't stop all these politicians and all these famous people from running around with it. They just didn't know, apparently. They didn't know the accusation. And then, conveniently, like 2 days after Savile's dead, everyone's like, oh, yeah, by the way, he was a monster pedophile. We all knew. But those are the people. We have to trust the people that are looking into that. The same people in the UK, by the way, that allowed grooming gangs to rape thousands of girls over a 3-decade period. Those people, trust them. They're getting to the bottom of this. They're getting to the bottom of the child sex trafficking thing. And no high-level person ever goes down. How can that be? I mean, I was talking about this the other day. Like, again, I'm not trying to make this like a left versus right thing. That's not what I'm saying. But it's so easy. Like you saw after these shootings. It's so easy. An individual person could be smart, but when you're talking about people as a whole, it's so easy to rile them up with misinformation. How many people still to this day, Elizabeth Warren just said it, that Trump said after Charlottesville that white supremacists were very fine people. He didn't say it. He specifically said in all 3 of his speeches afterwards, he said there were very fine people on both sides. Not the white supremacists, of course. They need to be condemned in the strongest possible terms. That's what he said. Yeah, Tommy Robinson. I argued with people on ATS. So many people were so happy he went to jail. He's a monster. How dare he report in those court? How dare he bring this up? Maybe he's done things that aren't great. I've seen some things that he said and done that I wasn't a big fan of. But I wish people had 1/10 the animosity towards the actual damn child rapist and the police and the politicians that knew it was happening and allowed it to go as they did the guy who was calling it out. That's how easy people are brainwashed. They have more anger at the guy who called it out because he's crude and maybe he's a bit racist. I don't even know. Who cares in the grand scheme of things? What's that compared to? You have reports that show elected officials and law enforcement for 3 decades knew children were being raped and did nothing because they are afraid of being called racist. Have any of them faced jail time? Have any of them been held to account? No. Where's the British public on that? But boy, they'll come out with the knives for Tommy Robinson. Throw him in jail. Yeah, get him. He's a scumbag. He's low class. He's a soccer hooligan. It's the same here. People will get incredibly... I say this. I was against the Iraq War. Even though I was a right-wing person, I was kind of more of a Ron Paul person, right? And I had all these friends on the left that were against war, and it was like, that was going to be this big movement. It was like, oh, this anti-war movement. And then Obama comes in, and where did all those people go? Where did they go? All of a sudden, it didn't matter that Obama was bombing countries left and right. It didn't matter that he was overthrowing Libya, or what he was doing in Syria, or what he was doing in Yemen. None of that mattered, right? Didn't matter that he kept us in Afghanistan and Iraq. None of it mattered. And I'm the one who's changed. Now I'm the monster. That's what I've told people. It's like, look, say what you will about Trump. At least he gave overtures to trying to stop these wars. He hasn't came through with it. He hasn't got us into a new major one. He did bomb Syria, which is terrible. But anytime he even breathes a word about pulling out of Afghanistan or something, the Republicans and Democrat talking heads go nuts. No. We need these wars. We need them. We absolutely need them. And meanwhile, my anti-war friends, they're more concerned about Trump's mean tweets than actual killing innocent people having these corrupt wars. So that's how you know this will go under the bus. The average person, they'll say, my God, this is incredibly shady. They'll be fired up for 2-3 days. And the next news cycle will hit and no one will care about it. And the elites skate again. They know these people, and it's not like, I don't think it's like this super shady, like people smoking cigars in a back room. It's not that. It's just simple for them. They know. They control all of the cultural institutions of power. I talk about this all the time. They control the mainstream media. They control academia. They control the entertainment industry. They control Silicon Valley. And so the public narrative's theirs to control. That's why they're cracking down on free, independent content creators on places like YouTube and other places online. Because that's the cracks in their fingers as they're tightening their grip. Where the information's getting out there. They can't have it. That's why they go after someone like Alex Jones first. Alex Jones says a lot of crazy stuff I disagreed with. But what has he really done? Why do we go after him harder than the child pedophiles? So he's basically depersoned. He can't have a voice. Well, then we'll go to the next person who's slightly less crazy. Until eventually it's, well, you can't talk about this stuff at all. You just have to take it. You have to take this slap in the face. Something that we all know is a lie. We all know that it wasn't just incompetence that allowed them to have a guy of this powerful, of this magnitude, of one of the biggest cases in the history of this country and the world, of finally maybe holding elites to power for the most heinous of crimes, who already tried to kill himself once, and you couldn't manage it. It was a big whoopsie. And no one will care. Just like the FBI thing. Biggest mass shooting. Now, the El Paso thing, or the Pittsburgh, those are all heinous. We should talk about those shootings. Don't get me wrong. But we'll talk about them ad nauseum. We'll have commissions to do something. The shooting in Las Vegas that the FBI looked at, that there's all kinds of discrepancies. We just have to take that it's like, oh, sorry, we changed our story like 8 times. Sorry that there's all kinds of shady things, and it seems like this guy was at the very least some kind of big gun trafficker. But yeah, we don't know anything about him. Moving on. And just brush it under the rug. The biggest mass shooting in the history of the country. No need to look at it. We know nothing. They can't come up with a motive. None. Yeah, and I agree, October. I've never been on suicide watch, and I've never been to prison. But, I do work in the mental health industry, and I know people that have been involved in situations where they tried to harm themselves, and they're in facilities, some less secure than prisons, and it's very hard to have any personal time. Like, there are people checking on you constantly. That's just for someone who's harming themselves that doesn't have the potential to be the key witness in one of the biggest trials in the history of the world. But with Epstein, they couldn't manage it. And no one will be held to account. You think anyone in that prison is going to be held to account? They'll say, it was a bumbling, this guy, old Roy over here, he was supposed to be watching the monitor. We'll fire him. Shame on you, Roy. Anyways, back to the news cycle. I'm just sickened by this on so many levels. What chance do we have as a society? We know these people at the top. There is no justice. There's none. You really think that people are going to be held account for the Russia hoax? You think anyone's going to be held account for that? And by the way, maybe you hate Trump and you're like, well, whatever, screw him, screw Trump. What do you think the treatment Tulsi Gabbard's getting's about? She criticized Kamala's record on being a prosecutor, and Kamala's response and the media's response, Tulsi must be a Russian agent. I told people that's what would happen. I said, be careful what you cheer for, because if a real progressive that's like anti-war comes up on the left, they're going to get smeared with the same brush. Oh, no. Yep, that's exactly what happened, isn't it? What chance do we have? We don't have a voice. When it comes to the sure, we can argue about gay marriage or abortion or, we could have disagreements on immigration. How's that working, by the way? We have different agreements on immigration that get more heated every year for 20 years? And yet nothing's ever changes, does it? Never changes. They'll throw us these bones. They'll leave us argue about that. But the big things, the foreign wars, the bailing out bankers, the fact that there's so many heinous criminals in positions of power that nothing's ever done to them. And I don't care left or right. I don't care at all. Yeah, I mean, there's the idea that they're trying to change that, us having access to the Second Amendment. But even then, it doesn't matter. Because the question of weapons doesn't matter. It's a question of will. Are you confident that the average person... I mean, how many times do we get slapped in the face and we just take it? The average person, they're busy. They don't know. And you can't really blame them. It's the narrative. It's the fact that all of our information is controlled by these establishment people. And if that's the case, no one has the will to do anything to change it. I mean, for God's sakes, I don't know how to make this any clearer. Thousands of, granted, this is the UK, but it's just the story that comes to mind. Imagine living in communities, towns, like the size of, not huge places. This isn't New York City, maybe the size of Harrisburg, because I live in Pennsylvania, or like Columbus, Ohio, or something like that. Small cities. Where thousands of girls were raped, your daughters, your friends' daughters, for 3 decades. The police knew about it. You got pissed. You called the police. What did the report say? The police treated the girls like the criminals. They arrested them. 13-year-old girls, they'd arrest them for being drunk. But don't do anything to the 20 men that were in the room with her, giving her alcohol and raping her. They treated the girls like criminals. Then the parents got pissed because nothing would be happening. So they'd go to these places and take matters in their own hands. So the police would arrest the parents. That occurred for 30 years. Thousands of girls being raped. Thousands. And once the story breaks, what just is it? It's a couple of weeks like, oh, that's tragic, that's bad. Anyways, on to the newest soccer game. Oh, Trump tweeted something mean? Yeah, back to that. Let's fly a big fat Trump baby balloon. Hee hee. Now we're making a difference. If that didn't cause people to rise up, and it's not just that happened, right? Because heinous stuff happens. I get that, right? It happens. And that is terrible, don't get me wrong. But the real thing is that we know absolutely for certain that the politicians knew in these towns and that the police knew. Yet none of them are punished. None. Now, if no one acts when thousands of girls are raped over a 3-decade period, what chance do we have here of someone doing something when, how many victims are there of Epstein that we know about? A dozen? 2 dozen? Maybe once we get to 10,000, then people will start to speak up? It just, I just don't know. Again, is it coincidental that this happened right when the documents are unsealed of Epstein's trial? And it actually named names? Is it coincidental that the FBI just said, oh, by the way, one of the bigger threats to this country is conspiracy theories? The amount of anger and rage that the mainstream people put to people pushing Pizzagate, which again, I think look, there's a danger here, right? You don't want to specifically name someone as being a pedophile unless you have proof of it. And it's one of the things I said about Epstein. It's really difficult because I am someone who believes in the presumption of innocence. But in Epstein's case, he already pled guilty in 2009 or whatever it was. So we knew he was guilty. It was just they gave him a slap on the wrist. But yes, you don't want to say this specific person's a pedophile unless you have proof of it. I get that. But the vitriol and the rage that people went after those people, the people that were pushing Pizzagate, which again I'll say wasn't me. I wasn't one of the ones that were going with the direct line by line, looking at all the symbols and stuff. I wasn't doing that. But can you blame those people when you see crap like this happen? And the fact that the mainstream goes after them harsher than, I don't know, the actual powerful people that are credibly accused by a known pedophile of being an associate of his and being at his place where we know rapes were occurring, were the same girls that accused Epstein and got him charged and convicted in the first time and charged the second time. We're saying these other people did it too. They don't have the same scorn for them, do they? No, you the plebe, you the average person that has a problem, that's who they reserve their scorn for. How many times do they tell us we're misogynist? You can't call, or you're a construction worker, you can't call a woman. Oh, yeah, you touched someone, you gave some girl a hug without their consent. Oh, you looked at her, oh, you said something nice to her. You're a misogynist. You're a terrible person. Right? That's what they tell us average people. Constantly telling us, shame, shame, shame. Meanwhile, in their industries, the people that are telling that in the media, in the entertainment industry, sexual assaults run rampant. And we've known about them for years. The same people that are defending Roman Polanski, who anally raped a 13-year-old girl, and saying people like Meryl Streep, people like Whoopi Goldberg, people like Darren Aronofsky, hundreds of people in Hollywood signed a letter saying it's time to drop the charges. Those are the same people that are telling you, oh, and if you don't like the Ghostbusters movie, the women's Ghostbusters, it's because you're a misogynist. And where's the anger go? It goes to the average people, the people in flyover country. People that believe in things like traditional gender roles. Which again, I have no problem. In many ways, my wife's more masculine than me. Like, if someone needs to work on the car, it's probably going to be my wife, or like fix something around the house. So that's not how I live my life. But I'm just saying, where is everyone's anger? Where's the mainstream anger at the actual powerful people that are committing sexual assaults on people? They only begrudgingly talk about it once they're outed. Oh, yeah, Epstein or Weinstein. Oh, I just didn't know, says Meryl Streep. I didn't know. How could I have known? Everybody knew. It's the same with Epstein. Everybody knew. Now, that doesn't mean if you're someone who hung out with them and you happen to be at a party with them that you're guilty of that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that everyone who ever talked with them around a party is automatically guilty. But they knew he got away with this. I saw the one reporter say she had a story canned in 2001 about Epstein being inappropriate with women. The media didn't want it. They didn't want the story. The Weinstein story was buried for how long? But we have to believe this slap in the face. They're more angry at you for being pissed at something like this today, that Epstein and his cohorts will never actually face justice. They hate you for that. They'll attack you for that. They'll tell you you're a scumbag for that. More hatred for you than the actual child rapist. And by the way, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but this wasn't justice. Not only is it not justice for these victims because the associates of Epstein will now most likely get away with this, but he took the easy way out as well. Those girls deserve to be able to face him in court and tell people exactly what he did to them. And even if this was just a suicide, if we believe that, the FBI and the people in charge of that prison ought to be ashamed that they knew this guy was on suicide watch and they allowed that to happen and robbed those victims of their justice. But I'll be the a-hole. I'll be the jerk for being the person who's upset about it. I'll be the conspiracy theorist. I'll be the piece of garbage. That's what the mainstream story will be. They don't care. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. How many people said, it wasn't just like me, how many people came out and said, he'll never make it to trial? For God's sakes, one of the victim's own lawyers said it. I'll be surprised if this makes it to trial because so many powerful people want him rubbed out. And lo and behold, it happens. But we'll be told it was just a coincidence. He really killed himself. And you'll hear things like, for a man that had that lavish of a lifestyle to face, a lifetime in prison and knowing what the prison inmates will do to him. Yeah, he took his own life. So, it's tragic, but I don't want to hear it. I'm not saying he didn't commit suicide. I don't know. That alone is heinous that he was allowed to be able to commit suicide under suicide watch and 24-hour surveillance. And I don't begrudge people, and I'm heavily looking into myself, that he was murdered or that he's not even dead, that he was snuck out. And you can't blame one damn person for thinking about any of those conspiracy theories. How many times do we have to be lied to? It's just, you should be furious. Again, what chance do we actually have to hold the powerful to account? I said this already, but there were two things that I saw. Why did I vote for Donald Trump? My dream election was Trump versus Bernie. Why? Because it doesn't matter if they really are outsiders. They both appeared like they could be outsiders. And if you're people at the top, you're these establishment people that are running the country, you don't want even the slightest chance that your grip on power, that someone will come in and be able to challenge that because you can't control them. That's why they cheated Bernie. That's why they didn't like Trump. Now, I know people that dislike Trump will say, but he's just one of them. Maybe. I disagree, but maybe. But it doesn't matter if he actually is or not. The key was they thought that perhaps he wouldn't be. And so I said, the number one reason I voted for Trump over Hillary was I'm tired of the establishments on both sides running the show and not caring about us average people in the street. And I felt like the election of Trump would out them as the corrupt people they were. And he's done so in spades. And now that the Russia investigation finally fell flat in its face and we're starting to see all of the evidence. I was writing in October of 2017, I wrote that if paid opposition research from one presidential team, the Hillary Clinton team, was used to spy on their opponent, using the most powerful investigative intelligence agency in the history of the world, that it was the biggest political scandal in the history of this country. I wrote that in October of 2017. Other people wrote it before me and after me. That's how big of a deal it was. And so that's what I said. The reason people tell to me all the time, well, how does Russia affect my life? How does this, the Mueller investigation, the FBI investigation, and you saying that it was corrupt, how does that affect my life? Because if there are people like Chuck Schumer said that are so powerful in the intel agencies that even the president of the United States should not criticize them or they'll come after him 6 ways from Sunday. That's what Schumer said on national TV. That alone should scare the crap out of every single person, Republican or Democrat. Wait a minute, you mean the guy we elect to be the most powerful person in the world has to be afraid of unelected bureaucrats and kowtow to them or they'll bring him down? How isn't that frightening everyone? But it didn't. So I said, the reason that this is such a big deal is because if we have unelected bureaucrats that are being kingmakers and deciding who's allowed to be president and going at anyone who slips through their fingers, going after them as hard as possible, that means whatever your issue is it climate change? Is it women's rights? Is it, stagnant wages for the low and middle class? Is it the opioid epidemic? Is it abortion? Is it gay rights? Is it the Second Amendment? None of that means crap if the people you get to choose from are just predetermined by these establishment type people. Call it what you want. The deep state, the establishment, the intel communities, and the people connected to them. The corporate interests that control all that. If you only get to choose between puppet A and puppet B, then it doesn't matter what your issue is. Because if your issue is something that will go against the interest of those powerful people, it'll never be enacted. Again, why do you think nothing's been done about illegal immigration? Because the powerful people that really run the show didn't want anything done about illegal immigration. Why is nothing ever done to raise stagnant wages? Why is nothing ever done to solve inner city violence? Why is nothing ever done? How does Flint, Michigan still have water that's undrinkable? Because these people don't care. And you can vote for the next person as long as it's pre-approved. These behind-the-scenes people are acting as kingmakers, the most powerful intelligence investigative agencies in the world. In the history of the world, then none of it matters. So this was our chance to get to the bottom of it. But people can't wrap their heads around it. It's a confusing story, and I don't blame people. So what was the other chance we had? What was the real, tangible chance we had? To take down crooked people on the left and the right, whatever, any side, I don't care. It was this Epstein case. Finally, here we have a chance. Someone who's an elite person themselves going down. And we know they have the goods on other people. And we could basically put pressure on him. And we know there's a good chance he's a corrupt worm that might spill his guts and throw other people under the bus. People could wrap their heads around that. It's not hard to tell people why child sex trafficking's bad. And we can already see how many people have public... How many people continue to hang out with Epstein after he pled guilty to paying underage child prostitutes? Establishment people. Politicians, Wall Street people, entertainment people, media people. After he pled guilty. So we know those connections are there. That doesn't mean they're pedophiles. I'm not saying that. But certainly we can see this person's well connected and he's admitted to trafficking underage child sex people. So here's the chance. And I said it, what a fool I was to even say it. To have the slightest bit of optimism to say, the two chances we have of really outing the corruption that at the highest levels of our country. And maybe if we get rid of some of that corruption, who knows? Maybe then we'll actually be able to get people in there that, I don't know, care about the average person. Maybe they're different. Maybe they're socialists, and I don't like socialism for those that watch my channel. It doesn't matter. I would rather have someone who's actually looking out for the interest of actual people than the people that are running the show now, the child sex traffickers that get away with it. So here's our chance to finally, maybe, just maybe, once the ball gets rolling, if we start to take down some of these corrupt people, if someone like, one of these high, whether it be a prince or a former president or a high politician gets connected to this, maybe the ball will get rolling. And other people that have been abused by high-level people will also start coming out. The reason none of them are ever charged, because if you charge one on one side, well, then they might spill the beans on the other people. So they all have a vested interest. That's why people like Epstein would do things like record people so they had leverage. As long as everyone's corrupt, then you don't have any fear. If all the powerful people are corrupt, you don't have any fear of any of them outing you, because then they would have to out themselves. That's how this heinous garbage is allowed to continue so much. And so if the ball got rolling and we started to take them down, maybe it would have a domino effect. Maybe people would see, did you see how corrupt this is? Do you see these people at the top? They got away with this for years. This was the chance. And dead. Just like that, gone. Now there is, I guess it's worth mentioning, I have seen the conspiracy. Maybe Trump got him, faked his death and got him out because there were going to be attempts on his life and he'll eventually come out. I guess, maybe. But I'm going to choose to believe that this is just another example of what we've seen happen over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That the truly powerful people, anytime anyone's going to speak up, they just mysteriously die. The Vince Fosters of the world, the DC Madams of the world. Just mysteriously, every single time. It just... And it's, again, it's the blatantness of it. The way that they lie to you. And it works. It just works. This country is tearing itself apart over the idea of obstruction of justice. We have people saying over and over again, no one is above the law. Who is they? It is unelected bureaucrats that are involved in the intelligence agencies, in the investigative agencies, people at the high level of politics, corporate people that are backing them. That doesn't mean everyone that's in the high level of politics. It doesn't mean everyone who's in the intelligence agency. That doesn't mean every wealthy person. But there is a group of people, and I don't know that it's an official organization that everyone's sitting in like a skull and bones room smoking cigars. But there are people that run the show right now. Their agenda is what gets pushed. Their agenda and their ideas are what get pushed. Think about it this way. I was just talking about this last night in a live stream I did. Remember when we had the bank bailouts in 2008, right? And we were told by all the media, like, it sucks that we have to do this, but, everyone agrees this is what we are doing. I remember looking at a graphic, and it was like, everyone agrees, right? So you had the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate, and they both said, yes, bail out the bank. But every other party, which, granted, they have no chance of winning the presidency, I get that, right? Every one of them was against it. But we were told by the people that, because they control the narrative, it's just something we have to do. We have to bail out these bankers. We have to do it. No, we didn't. That's corruption. We all know it. All of that corruption, and no one serious went to jail for it. By the way, Trump, bad on him. Because guess what? The economy will collapse again under the same way. You know how I know? Because the people that did it last time in 2008 that were responsible for that banking crisis, no one was punished, and they made money hand over foot doing it. They gambled your money in corrupt and illegal ways, and when that gamble paid off, they kept the money. And when that gamble didn't pay off, you, the taxpayer, bailed them out. And they were never punished for it. So do you think that, we learned our lesson, shame on us, right? No, of course it's going to happen again. And the fact that Trump hasn't gone after those people, if it happens on his watch, he's going to get the blame. But people say the Illuminati. People say, I don't think that it's an official named thing. I don't think they're sitting around calling themselves the Illuminati. Maybe. I don't know or care. All I know is, and it's like, it was like with Obama. People said, like, with the IRS targeting and stuff. I think a lot of it goes without saying. Like, they don't have to talk about the corruption. They just know it. Like, Obama probably didn't go to the IRS and Lois Lerner and say, hey, I want you to target Tea Party groups. But everybody knew with the wink and the nod what he wanted. He was aware of it. He allowed it to go. It was helping him politically. It's the same with this. And so they run the show, and they're not none of them are ever held to account. Nothing. Right, I get, the concept of kind of an Illuminati, of like a shadow group that's controlling everything. And again, that doesn't mean every person who's insanely rich is part of this. I'm just saying. And it's not just about money, it's about power in other ways. How did Epstein even make his money? Because he had this power, this leverage of proof of heinous acts that the wealthy were engaged in. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to leave here soon and shut down here soon, but I am absolutely infuriated, if you can't tell. I think that this is despicable, that we as the public, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, if you hate Trump, if you love Trump, if you're a Hillary supporter, if there are any of them left, but you should be outraged by this. If you're in the UK and you heard that one of your prince was named as being involved in this, you should be outraged. But I'm pessimistic. The next news cycle will come. I watch heinous thing after heinous thing. I watched the mainstream media put on a woman that said that Brett Kavanaugh was a gang rapist. That she got gang raped at the second party she went to, and then continued to go back 9 times to watch while she was an adult, to watch children be gang raped and never warn the children. And the media put her on there with no proof to smear him. And the Democrats said, it's her truth. We have to report on these things. And my jaw hit the floor. I was like, how in God's name can we be talking about this? We're getting rid of the concept of due process. It is because this isn't fringe people online. This is the mainstream media pushing this crap. Does anyone even care about that story anymore? Or how about the Covington kids? We had adult black racists for over an hour yelling at children, making homophobic slurs and racist slurs. And the media attacked the children. And even after the media found out, and not just the media, by the way, Democratic politicians as well, after they found out that the narrative was the opposite of what they were pushing, did they say are bad and stop it? No. Then they started looking at the school 6 years before the kids were even at the school, saying, oh, here was a basketball game where it was a blackout night and the kid painted himself black. What is the relevance to that story? The kids are getting death threats based on the lie that you told. And your response is to look at the school from 6 years ago? What happened to that story? Nothing. This story's even more heinous. In the UK, we have thousands of kids, girls being raped by grooming gangs. The police knew. The politicians knew. For 3 decades, it was allowed to occur. The parents that got angry and tried to take matters in their own hands because the police wouldn't do it. They were harassed. They were arrested. They were charged. And the people of the UK are too busy celebrating Tommy Robinson being thrown in prison than they are to be pissed off enough to go after the politicians and the police that allowed the child rapes to occur. So nothing's going to be done. People like me will rant and rave. Even me, I suck. 2 weeks from now, I'll be talking about the Russia investigation or a Democrat debate or my woeful Pittsburgh Pirates, and if they could get to like 100 losses this season. Meanwhile, there were actual girls raped. Their lives are screwed forever, and the little bit of shred of any sliver of justice they could have possibly got, it's a slap in the face that it gets flushed down the toilet like this today. But I'll be the crazy conspiracy theory. All of us that are upset about it will be the terrible people. Just like with Jimmy Savile. Just like the people that tried to out him. And if you guys are unaware of that because it was in the UK, look it up. People knew for years. People still know. People know that like I've heard prime ministers, people that are former prime ministers have been accused by people that have came forward and said, I was sexually assaulted by this person. It's kept under the rug. Now, does that mean all the accusations are true? No. But in a world where we know that the people could admit, we knew for 3 decades that thousands of children were being raped and did nothing. Who's to blame people for us, like us, for thinking there's a damn conspiracy? When some guy who tried to kill himself, Epstein, first off, he was given a slap in the wrist the first time, and then when their hand was forced and they had to charge him because an independent journalist did their job, now all of a sudden he's on suicide watch, but still manages to outsmart everyone and kill himself. But don't worry, those people are the ones, they're keeping us safe. They're the ones making sure that Trump's not a Russian. They're the ones that are going to protect us from the mass shooters. The same group that, after they've looked at the Las Vegas shooter for 2 years, we just have no clue. We don't know. We don't know. We're baffled. By the way, it's the same type of people that said, we got Osama bin Laden, but we buried him at sea for no reason, and no one can ever know about it, so, okay, moving on. The same people that lied to you about Syria, that lied to you about Libya, that lied to you about the Gulf of Tonkin, that lied to you about Castro being a good guy, that lied to you and said we needed to go to Iraq, that lied to you and said we needed to overthrow the Shah. The same people. It's mind-blowing. They don't care. They're becoming more brazen. The corruption's right out in the open. And millions of people like me that eventually become apathetic, or worse, people that buy their crap. Yes, Trump did say that white supremacists were good people. Yes, he said Trump's a white supremacist. His supporters are all white supremacists. He wants mass shootings. We should show up to his supporters' place with pitchforks and torches. And people go with this crap. And while they're doing it, they say, the problem is the other side's inciting violence and has divisive rhetoric. Why you call millions of people white supremacists Nazis? So do you think what chance in that world do you think there is of people being upset about this and demanding justice? None. There's no chance. That doesn't mean I'll give up. I'll still try to my best to inform people and to speak out. It's not much. On an average video mine I have 50, 60 people watch. I ran for Congress. I took 10th out of like 24 in the special election I was in. But I'll keep trying. I just don't know. Like a day like today, it's just... I can't believe how brazen it is. In your face. Sorry, we had him on suicide watch, but we turned our head for a minute and he killed himself. Oh well. Who cares about the powerful raping children anyways, right? So... yeah, I gotta go. I gotta pick my wife up at work, so I probably won't be doing any more videos today. I'm disgusted by this. And all I can say is that I feel really bad for the girls that went through this, and I hope that at least you can take some satisfaction that Epstein's dead. And maybe, just maybe, there's a small chance that something will happen and the people that connected him will be held to justice. But that's who I feel worse for. And I feel worse for whoever his cohorts were that'll assault other children and assault other people and get away with it too. Because this was allowed to happen today. So I'm sorry for that, and I'm sorry that we have this disgusting system that allows that to go on. So thanks everyone for listening. I'm not even, like I said, I'm not going to be putting any material on it the rest of today, but if you want to check out some of my other videos and like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And go out there yourself and just let people know how disgusting this is. Just let people know. Maybe people don't, you know people that don't even know who Epstein was. Just let them know. You don't have to ruin your day. You don't have to focus on it 24/7. But just let people know, like, this guy had connections to powerful Republicans and Democrats and princes and prime ministers and wealthy people in the media and the entertainment industry. He was on suicide watch and he was allowed to kill himself, and now no justice will be brought to anyone. I think that it's easy for people to wrap their heads around how disgusting this is. So just don't leave people forget that this happened today. So thanks, everyone, and try to have a good one today.